Hi, I'm Steve Owens and welcome to Steve's Kitchen. Now, one of the things I love to do is bake, but one of the things I love even more than that is to taste and experiment with food. Recently, I bought a rosemary and vine fruit bloomer from a local baker's and it is just delicious. So today I'm going to share with you the recipe. You really should try this. It's fantastic. Come on, let me show you how. Now, when you're making bread, it really is important to weigh things out rather than to use cups. It's far more accurate. I've got 350 grams, that's 12 ounces of bread flour or strong flour in a bowl. I've got 100 grams of rye flour, that's about 3.5 ounces. I'm going to pop that in there as well. I have 100 grams of mixed grain. Now in here we've got oatmeal, wheat berries and some semolina, but you can use any whole grains you like. This is going to give a lovely nutty texture to the bread. Couple of teaspoons of salt, a little bit more than most, but it does enhance the flavour. Now I'm using instant dried yeast here. If you use regular yeast, you may have to activate it as the packet says. Just pop that away from the salt. I've got some warm water, 300 millilitres. Just going to pour that in. Then I'm going to start the process with a fork. I'm just going to blend this together. This just keeps your hands clean really at the beginning of the mixing process. And once that's started to bind together, I'm going to get my hands in there now and draw this together into a dough. Now as that dough starts to come together, it will be quite sticky. We're going to bring it out onto our counter. Now for sure, if you have a dough hook and a stand mixer, please feel free to use it. I prefer to do this by hand. I just like the feel of the dough. Now I'm going to start kneading this and stretching it out until I get a lovely elastic dough. So I'm just using the palm of my hand to push it out and stretch the gluten. Now expect the dough at this point to be fairly sticky, but as you work it, and we're going to do this for about 10 minutes, you'll start to get less stickiness and a beautiful silky texture. Now after just 10 minutes of kneading, I've added no extra water or flour into that. We've got this wonderful elastic dough. And if you stretch that round like that, it's got a lovely spring back. The other reason for doing it by hand, of course, is we all need a bit of exercise in our life. Now, fresh rosemary. I want you to take 1.5 tablespoons of fresh chopped up rosemary. Just pop it onto your bread. Pull that out a little bit like that because I'm taking 100 grams, that's 3.5 ounces, of plump sultanas and just popping it on there as well. And then what we want to do is fold these into the bread and another few minutes just to make sure they're fully incorporated into the bread. And now I've got that beautifully incorporated into the bread. I'm just going to take that up. I've got my bowl here again. We'll take a little bit of olive oil and pop our dough in there, just coat it over with the oil. Then we want to cover that with a damp cloth and leave it somewhere warm for an hour or at least until it's doubled in size. Now my dough's taken about an hour to rise. It's beautiful there. We're just going to knock this down now, knock the air back out of it. Then I'm going to lift this dough out onto my work surface. Just going to put a light dusting of flour underneath. I'm just going to roll this up nice and tight. Take a cutter and just divide the dough into 2 pieces. We're going to get 2 loaves out of this. Now I'm just going to ease this out into a sausage shape and then I'm just going to use my hands and just pull the dough around nice and tight like that. And then the same again with the second one. So we end up with 2 beautiful plump little loaves like that. Then I'm just going to lay these out onto a baking tray. I'm going to cover these over with a damp cloth. I'm going to leave them in a warm area until they've plumped up, almost doubled in size, maybe about 30 minutes. Now look at those, they've risen beautifully. Now I've preheated an oven to 190 degrees Celsius, that's 375 Fahrenheit. I'm going to bake these for about 25-35 minutes, just keep an eye on them. But before they go in, I'm just going to take a sharp knife and these are bloomers after all, I'm just going to cut a few lines across the bloomers to allow them to open up as they bake. Now they're ready to go in the oven. Now look at those, they've just come out of the oven. They are piping hot and we need to leave them to completely cool down. The smell coming off there is just delicious. Now I'm so impatient, they haven't quite cooled down yet, but I'm going to have a piece. They smell delicious and what better way to serve them with a farmhouse cheddar and an Australian Merlot. I'm just going to pour myself a little bit now. Just take a slice off of this bloomer. It's lovely and crisp, can you hear that? I'm going to take a piece of this cheddar. It's crumbly. And cheers, here's to your health. Bon appetit, here goes. Oh, that never ceases to amaze me just how good that is. The combination of the rosemary and the sultanas, you really have to give this a try. Please share the love, give this one the thumbs up. What are you still doing here? You should be off making this loaf. Be good, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.